Hi, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So today we are joined by Chavez Flexingtn. How you doing tonight, man? I cannot
I'm
hear
doing
you.
great, man. I'm excited to be here. I really, truly am. I've been looking forward to this, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Awesome, man. I look forward to it, man. I'm excited to have this conversation. Obviously, a lot is going on in the world. So we'll get into a little bit of this situation with Charlie Kirk. But first, I guess, could you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of what you do?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm kind of let me start off by saying I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of nothing. I've been a professional, and this is in no particular order. I've been a professional musician for many, many years. I've recorded, toured, produced, edited, used to mix and master. I don't really do that anymore. I've been in leadership positions basically all my life within different professions, from retail to installs to consultations to sales to construction to commercial, a little bit of commercial real estate, but that didn't last very long. All over the place, man. Very, very impressive resume, but again, jack of all trades, master of nothing. But now, what's really more important is the streaming industry, which is an extension of the entertainment industry. This is where my calling is. This is where my passion is. This is where I want to help my fellow brothers and sisters succeed in their goals. And I want to be able to, quite frankly, combat degeneracy and delinquency. I'm so sick of seeing a bunch of non-tent posers making millions of dollars when they're non-contributors to society and culture. And I want to encourage my brothers and sisters to do better, and we can dive in a little bit deeper on that, I'm sure. So, in a nutshell, that's me. I hope that helps.
No, that definitely helps, man. Yeah, and we definitely need more of that, especially kind of everything happening right now. We need to be in a situation where we can have conversations without fear of reprisal, fear of somebody laying claim to our lives. Obviously, unless you're living under a rock, happened with Charlie Kirk and this situation that happened just a couple days ago, where his life was taken from him, and now we got a little bit more news about that. It was a leftist, a radical leftist that shot this man in the neck and took his life, and it's very, very tragic. It's something that
Hmm.
I found out live on stream, and it just wrecked me, man. But it's also in a way encouraging to see a man, like the whole point of me doing this is to having these conversations is to inject a little bit of hope in the world. And by having guests come on and share what God has done in their lives. And when you look at the life of a man like Charlie Kirk, he exemplified what it meant to be a steward of what God has given him and to live a life committed to serving Jesus Christ. And that to me is very admirable.
Yeah, yeah, no, it really is. I think what he's done. I mean, if I've studied this man for a while, I really have. I mean, I've never met him, never talked to him, never shook his hand or anything like that. But if you look at the legacy that he's left behind, um, as many videos as I've watched that he's created, it's I disagree with him very little and agree with him very much so on many different takes. And at the end of the day, when you really analyze it, look, all he really did in a nutshell was advocate for open discussion, open dialogue, and he just wanted to talk and interact, and most importantly, listen. I mean, how many people have something to say, but they never use their ears, right? That's why we have two ears and one mouth. We should be listening twice as good as we talk,
Yeah.
right? And he absolutely exemplified that. In my own personal opinion, I also sincerely believe that he was genuine. I don't think there was any acting or fakeness or whatever. I pride myself on my intuition about how people conduct themselves in a professional manner, their mannerisms, their behavioral patterns, the psychology of it, the whole thing. And I really sincerely believe he was genuine and sincere. And clearly, I'm not trying to be facetious at all, but clearly he was doing something right because his life was ended, because he spoke a lot of truth, and that's the harsh, harsh reality of it. So anyway, yeah, I'll yield my time for now.
He was effective, man. He was really
Yeah.
effective in getting out the word and galvanizing people. And he was, like a lot, to go after Charlie is kind of crazy to me because he is actually one of the more moderate people in the movement.
Hmm.
He was one of the people that was actively having open dialogue with people and actively engaging with these people. And, they killed him. They killed the most moderate guy, one of the more moderate guys in the movement. And that to me is just, it's disheartening, bro. Um,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I find myself deeply moved by the life that he's lived and what he's accomplished. And I heard a couple things about him actually gearing up to do ministry full time, is what he was, or apologetics full time, as he was transitioning out, which just makes it even more respectable in my opinion. Is that he was uh, transitioning to this avenue of his life where he's going to glorify God, and I think that's awesome, man. I do.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's something that is a little bit newer for me, but if that is indeed true, then all the more reason why he probably saw what all of us see. Well, clearly he did. The corruption of politicians, and it's a never-ending battle. It'll never ever stop. It will never ever stop. And I think he was just like, you know what? I think my talents and skills and abilities can be used in a slightly different way. And it's a shame that he didn't get a chance to explore that option because, dude, he would have been incredible. Well, he was incredible, but even more so in a different way, right? I hate to see uh, somebody's life getting taken away from them before they even get a chance to really, you know, get to where they personally would like to be. But yeah, he because he was effective, he was dangerous, if you
Yeah,
know what I
that
mean,
they
right?
recognize
So
that, dude. I mean,
yeah.
I've heard dozens of people by now say that he would have very likely been the president one day. And that
Oh
to
yeah.
me is like, and you could see it. Ben Shapiro, what was he was talking about when he met him when he was 18 years old, and he said that kid one day is going to be the head of the RNC. Like, just, at 18 years old, he recognized tremendous talent in this man. And
Hmm.
it's very obvious when you watch his interviews that this man had just, I mean, not just spirituality, because that's important, not just his faith, but also just raw skill. I mean, just
Yeah.
unparalleled. It was amazing to watch him, and he was formative too in me kind of coming on this scene and getting into commentary world and learning my debates and trying to figure out different angles to take and approaches to take when I'm getting in debates with people who are hostile to my very existence. So I really appreciate everything that he's done. And I guess the news now is that they finally apprehended the person that took his life, and I'm very grateful. I'm very
Hmm.
grateful and hopeful that there will be a speedy trial and this person will be snuffed out of planet Earth.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point. That's a very divisive topic that makes people feel very uncomfortable. Capital punishment and a handful of other things, and we don't need to necessarily go too far off in left field. But uh, with what's going on, man. So I consider one thing I didn't say in my intro is I am absolutely a savage realist, 100%. I'm very sarcastic too, by the way. You can probably tell by the little ticker that pops up here. I mean, I call people dummy, stupid, idiot face, moron. It's all in good nature, Like if I like you, I'll slap you around a little bit, but if I love you, I'm gonna freaking punch you square in the face. It's just one of those weird things, right? So anyway, regardless, but no. On a serious note, I some of the things that are going on in this country, I always encourage everybody to question everything, and I mean everything they see and they hear, especially in this day and age of AI, information, reports, social media. Good grief, dude! We just witnessed like history on Twitter, and it happens, dude. Okay, let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself already. Twitter is already, if you go to their the App Store or the Google Play Store or whatever it is, at the top of the Twitter app, it'll say breaking news and social media. It's not even just social media or platform or whatever. It's just this breaking news. And I gotta hand it to them. That is their bread and butter. The reason why I'm saying that is because even just the bombing in Iran that happened, that was all done in real time, essentially, right on social media. And we're getting oversaturated with essentially TMI, some things we actually don't need to know. And then other cases, like, okay, here's the actual truth, but it's up to us to filter through that to figure out what is exactly accurate. Now, why am I bringing that up? I dabble a little bit in conspiracy theory, just a little bit. I'm not a wacko, okay? I'm not like, I can't even come up with something ridiculous, but I'm not that far gone, right? But even the person that they caught, I question if that's real. The questions being asked and what the government portrays, I question if that's legit. I question literally everything. And what I've come to realize is that the minute you start asking questions, if people shut you down or they get defensive or whatever the case may be, that's a huge, massive red flag for me as far as interrogation or just overall curiosity. So all that to say, if indeed this is the actual killer, awesome. I'm glad they have him. If not, I hope there is a speedy trial. I do hope there is a speedy trial. If he's actually guilty, awesome. But even then, man, I definitely am a firm believer in the powers that be in terms of influence outside of our own nation.
Yeah.
And that could be Australia. Everybody's afraid to say this, right? That could be Australia. That could be Europe. That could be, yes, big bad Israel. That could be freaking Africa. I don't make up a country, make up a state, make up a city, whatever. You know, America is just like evil is everywhere, man.
Yeah.
I'll just sum it up by saying that evil is everywhere, and we should absolutely be defending ourselves. You're my brother in Christ. I take a bullet for you, man. This
Yeah.
is the mentality I think that we need to have as brothers and sisters and as common sensors, needless to say. So with that, I'll yield my time.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I'm definitely, I don't write off conspiracies and I don't write off questions. I try to straddle like a fine line because like there's this, I see like two kind of extremes with it. It's like, everything's a conspiracy sometimes. And I think like that can be unhealthy because then there's like what can you really believe, like,
Hmm.
and that's concerning. But at the same time, there are just people that don't give it any thought, like everything's fine. There's nothing
Hmm.
suspicious at all going on. And I think it is healthy to ask questions and to look a little bit deeper into some of the things and not take everything at face value. Because you're right, yeah,
Hmm.
AI definitely plays a role. We have adversaries, we have people that intentionally, flood misinformation. Just sorting through Charlie's death, man, there was a lot of people that pulled the trigger prematurely. I don't think they even knew. They just wanted to get in on the clout, get in on
Of
the clicks,
course.
get in on the engagement.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they were reckless with that. So it's like, you just got to be very careful. And I think asking questions and, just using a little bit of critical thinking will go a long ways. Um, so I am just to back it up a little bit. I'm very grateful, that we had somebody like Charlie Kirk, whose life I think is a perfect testimony to what it means to be charitable to even our enemies and to live a life committed to serving God and glorifying His name. I have tremendous respect for him. My heart is genuinely like I'm grieved by it. I don't,
Hmm.
and it's one of those weird things too, where I don't get really emotional when celebrities die. And
Same.
it's not even
Same.
like I was somebody that watched Charlie Kirk religiously. I watched him here and there. We saw his clips of owning the libs. It was great. We enjoyed it. Um, but something about this just hit profoundly. And are you a father?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Two
Yeah.
two kids. One is autistic, and we think the other one's about to be as well. By the way, she's a little bit younger.
Okay, yeah. So then you understand then, what how tragic it would be for your life to get snuffed out, and to see this happen with Charlie was just heartbreaking.
Hmm.
So my heart goes out to Erica Kirk and his daughter, and I believe he has a son. Heartbreaking, truly
Hmm.
heartbreaking, and I couldn't imagine waking up and that being a reality.
Yeah, I'm actually of the same exact mindset, man. I'm not. I'm really honestly not emotional at all. I mean, the reason why my camera is black and white is because This is not a facade or an act or a mask that I'm putting on. This is how my mind works. I am very systematic. I'm analytical. I have an engineer's mindset, and I'm very much black and white. I don't work well with gray. I literally, there's something in my head. Maybe I am a little autistic. Maybe I'm OCD. Call it what you will. Two plus two will always be and forever be nothing other than four. And if somebody comes along and says five, I have a problem with that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that because as a human, of course I have feelings and emotions. They just don't overrule me. I'm a very, very passionate person, but that's kind of a different thing in and of itself. But with what happened, like I can't really put it into words because, like you, I don't really get shaken up by any celebrity's death. I mean, I have compassion, I have sympathy, of course. I mean, it's terrible. I never like death or wish death upon anybody. But at the same time, I can't explain it. I think it's because I'm a father and a husband and a brother, and I genuinely, truly care for people as brutal and savage as I am. That's why I'm so passionate. It's
Yeah.
because I want to nurture the human spirit and helping people recognize where that comes from, right? And what I saw happen that was on public display for all to see, I think I'm going to say something pretty prophetic, but I don't want to sound necessarily like superstitious or overzealous or anything like this. I couldn't quite put my finger on it until earlier today when I was discussing this very thing with a fellow colleague of mine. And I think what it boils down to is that, I mean, yes, Charlie was a sinner like the rest of us. He wasn't God, he wasn't Jesus. But what I find so difficult is that almost like it's a modern day Christ-like behavior.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he was completely innocent because, again, he was a sinner. But again, if you look at his track record, he literally just wanted to help people. He wanted to assist. He wanted to talk. And he was killed for it. That
Yeah.
sounds like a story. That already
Yeah.
sounds like a story that's already been lived out,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about Jesus, right? And I think because I came to terms with that, even now at this point, 2 days later, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I started bawling. It hit me hard, and then it got personal for me. I was like, what if that was my son? And I give him. This is where it hits really hard,
Yeah,
man.
dude.
What if that was my son? And I say, go out into the world, my son, and go preach the good word even until death. That's what we're called to do. And man, I'll tell you right now, the last thing I'll say is I struggle with this all the time. As Abraham to his own son, God called him to sacrifice his own one and only child. And Abraham to that's actually my son's name, ironically enough. It's even to that level of loyalty. God, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this because I will obey. And I'll tell you right now, as much of a Christian as I may claim to be, I don't know if I could do that, man. I'm just being completely honest. I don't think I could sacrifice my son for even one person, let alone a nation or anybody else. I don't have an answer for that, man. That hits hard, man.
So I would, I was presented with a situation, a scenario, like, what would you do to protect your kid? I would let me in my flesh, I would let the whole world burn to save my own kid. Like my own, I love my child, so to sacrifice them for the whole world, or to sacrifice, send them into the missions field and know that there's a very good chance that they could not come back, man. Yeah. I would struggle to do that. I think anybody that says they wouldn't is not being completely honest with themselves, because that's a difficult thing to reconcile. So, I didn't even think about Charlie's parents. I just thought about him as a parent. But yeah, he was somebody's son, and it was like, Tim Pool said something. He's like, we lost our friend. And yeah, that's what it felt like. Is we lost our friend. We lost a brother in Christ. We lost somebody that was, I mean, by most measures, one of the best ones in the game, one of the kindest, most gentle, most patient people, in conservatism. And it definitely hits hard, man. So I do want to just shift gears a little bit, man. Because we came on here with the chief goal of talking really about your life and your testimony and your story, and what you've ultimately been through. And I really would love to hear it. I want this to be a space where you can share freely, and hopefully we can inject a little bit of hope in a world that is spiraling into darkness, because people need it, man. They need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, well, like anybody else who's loaded with pride, I can continue to talk about myself for however long needs to. I'm being a little sarcastic there, of course, but I definitely I have a slightly different approach to certain I'll say mentalities or systems that people come up with in their head. What do I mean by that? Typically, most Christians and believers will point to one single testimony of when they were saved, and some even got it down pat to where it's like a day and a time and the mood in the air and or whatever the case may be. And another part of that is usually the more impactful the testimony is, it's something pretty drastic, like I was held at gunpoint, or I was about to lose my life, or something like that. And my story, I have many, many testimonies. As a matter of fact, multiple testimonies
Yeah.
of when God showed up. I'm. I also have. There's a lot to unpack here. There really actually is. But I will tell you that for me, as of right now, so I'm 40 years old. I'm about to be 41 in November, very soon. So I guess, but statistically speaking, half my life is officially over. I'm supposed to die around 80, and that's fine. Whatever, I embrace it. But anyway, I really can't point to a single event. I have an amazing steel trap memory with certain things, and others I just don't. I'm terrible with it. I'm a man. It happens. I'm a fool. I mean, this is why I'm so heavily reliant on my lady, my bride, my best friend,
Ain't
to
that the
help me.
truth, bro? Me too.
It is what it is, right? There's parenting. There's marriage. We can talk about that too. Anyway, but the short of it really is, so I don't really typically advertise this, but fun fact, I was the original drummer from the contemporary Christian band called Casting Crowns.
Oh, wow.
So many years ago. I mean, a long time ago, man. That's one of the many testimonies. And I was definitely raised in the Christian faith. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry. My biggest thing I can say is that my life basically revolves around a consistent picking from the enemy. It wasn't anything drastic. It wasn't, held at gunpoint. I haven't held anybody in my hands who has died. It's nothing drastic like that. But how Satan has attacked me, it's like it's been stretched out over a period of time to where most people would crumble. And I realize and recognize now that my character, my stamina, and my spiritual endurance as a whole, this is exactly why I experienced what I experienced, when and how, and in the way that I did, even up to this point. It wasn't but last year, one mini testimony I'll just tell you. I've been struggling financially for almost a full year now. I have a very, very impressive resume. I'm confident in my skills. I've never, ever, ever had a problem finding a job. And I made the mistake of praying for humility. And he as of course he delivered, and he said,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm going to bring you to an all-time low, but I'm going to bring you past that and even lower than that, because I want to force you to be solely reliant on me as one who always has the answers. Talking about me, I've never been wrong. I've always helped other people out. I've always been contributing. I've always been a leader. And then he says, I'm going to force you to really look at me. And I didn't realize that, of course, until fast forward to now, and it could happen tomorrow. I'm expected to lose my job tomorrow. It's a savage truth. So I guess really what I'm getting at is the what I call the spiritual endurance, the mental stamina, and the fortitude that has been bestowed upon me. I'm not a master of this by any means. I want to be very clear. It's wild, because I've always been a patient person, but now it's like times 50.
Yeah.
And I love it because I have something that nobody else does. And ironically enough, I also have an anger problem. There's another side. Now I have a legitimate anger problem, and you probably wouldn't suspect that because I recognized that many years ago, and I've held myself in check up to this, or even now to this point. Hopefully, in the many years down the road. Of course, I lash out sometimes. I fail. I absolutely do. But God was always there. I was raised in the faith. I might be getting off topic. I apologize.
No,
I'm
it's
kind of
okay, man.
rambling. But I've always been raised in the faith. Thank God that, literally, thank God that I have one mother, one father who are still happily married to this day. That in and of itself is a miracle in this day and age.
That is incredible, man, because
It
I
is.
don't know a lot of people in my generation. I'm 35, so you're not that much
Hmm.
older than me, that grew up having a mother and father in the home. Most of my friends come from divorced homes. So yeah, that is that is incredible.
It's a rarity. It really is a rarity, and I'm so blessed and grateful for it. I am at the point, or I've been at the point, where as much as I'm grateful and blessed and fortunate to have them still together, and they, like any parent, they did the best that they could. And not to sound unappreciative, but I also now recognize their own sins as an older man, as a father myself, and as a husband myself, and that's a beautiful thing. That's not a bad thing. And I realized, you know what, I'm going to take the good from this and mimic and mirror that, and I'm going to learn from their mistakes. Now, that's the cycle of life, man. I want my kids to do the exact same thing.
That's
I will
wisdom, man.
forever, I will forever boast in my mistakes so that they can learn from that.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about the human race and this species in general. We have a very unique gift that no other creature on this entire earth has, where we can actually teach each other through vocalizing our
Yeah.
mistakes. And hopefully, wisdom, discernment, and prudence will guide us in absorbing that and applying that to our own lives. So, anyway,
Yeah, no, I
I'll stop
agree
there
with
for now.
that, man. Because I grew up in come from a divorced household, and not my mom. She did the best that she absolutely could, and I have
Hmm.
nothing but respect for her. And it's not like my dad was completely absent; he wasn't. But it's still like the death of a marriage, and you're living through
Yeah.
that, and you got to reconcile with that, and you do get, when I started to get 15, 16, I started to realize some of the faults of my parents, and one of my commitments when I did get married is that I will I will aim to avoid making the same mistakes that they did.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to say that I've been perfect at it, but my commitment to my wife was that divorce is not an option. We will not
Yep.
put our children through that. We will work it out one way or the other, no matter what, because our kids deserve that. And I want to give I want to give my daughter something that I didn't have growing up, which is
Hmm.
a mother and a father in the household, raising them up in the ways of the Lord. And I'm
Amen.
very grateful to have that foresight that was something that I was going to do, early on in my marriage and not way down the road when things are, in turmoil.
I want to shine you on for a minute, brother. I want to put you on the spotlight. The fact that I'm going to start off with my actual own father. My father did not really have a father at all. He did. He wasn't present, but he was a womanizer. He was a piece of trash. He was garbage. I'm just going to say it. And um, my father had, negatively speaking, had the opportunity, if you will, to walk away from my mother, to not be there, to rinse and repeat the same vicious cycle, but he chose to do the exact opposite and be like, I'm never doing that to my kids. And that, to me, in my opinion, is the real measure
Yeah.
of a man. And I want to applaud you for that as well, because you could have easily taken some might say the easy way out. You could have been a piece of shat as well, man.
Yeah.
You really could have. And you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to stay in there. And to your point, I don't believe in plan B. I don't believe in a backup. I don't believe in divorce. That's not even up for discussion. It's just simply not.
Yeah.
And people find that fascinating. Like, well, what do you mean something could happen? I'm like, yeah, something could happen maybe in your relationship, but I made a promise. I made a covenant, and
Yeah.
I am not intending, I mean, till death do you part.
That's
You know
not
what
a
I'm saying?
flippant thing, man. A covenant is a serious thing.
Yeah.
You're not making vows just before men, but like the holy and eternal God. and your word has to mean something, and it's like, when
Hmm.
I made that I said my vows to my wife, I meant it, and I'm going to uphold it, because I don't want to repeat that cycle, man. I just don't. It causes nothing but harm. It's the death of love, and I don't want that to
Hmm.
happen in my household. And
Yeah.
as of right now, I have a daughter, that's six years old, and she's already like, excited about getting married one day and having babies one day. I'm like, well,
That's
slow
so
down, kiddo.
sweet. Yeah, as a father, I can imagine like, don't even talk about it. Shut your mouth, right? But there's another party that's like, oh, that's actually really
Yeah,
sweet, right?
it's
Yeah.
cute, man. She's like, I want to have like six babies. So like, I'm like, okay, well, hey, if you could do it, you could do it, but let's
Yeah.
let's be a kid right now.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that right there, as one who has a daughter as well, like, man, I know this is so cliche and cheesy, but man, I don't know about you. This has got to be just a god slash God fearing man thing. That relationship right there, what I'm about to
Yeah,
say, there's something very very special between a father and his daughter.
yeah,
I still can't put it into words. I think the fact that it's a little girl and that is precious. I mean, sons are precious too, of course. I don't want to minimize
yeah.
that, but there's something about an actual little girl, and when she looks up at you and she thinks the world of you. And man, I don't want to put words in your mouth and maybe over assume here, but I've already come to the conclusion that no man will ever be good enough for my daughter. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's going to be a challenge, man.
I said to my daughter, I was like, all right, if he's like half the man that I am, then maybe I'll approve.
Yeah. Well, for me,
He
it's
has to be
like
really good.
it's well, I'll even one up that. Like he's got to be either a at my level or even better, and
I
that's
would,
just not going to
I
happen.
would hope, I would hope for better, man. I would hope for better. And hopefully too, we go back to kind of the state of this world, and part of the, my aim, my goal in life is to create a world, man, where my daughters can grow up with good men. Men that
Hmm.
believe in marriage, men that value the family and value faith and value freedom,
Hmm.
and men that will stand up for them. That's what I want for my daughter. I want
Hmm.
her to grow up in a world where, um, men look out for women, and she can have a protector, and she can get on a bus, not get stabbed to death or something tragic like that. Like that's the
Horrible,
world that I
horrible.
want to
Yeah.
create for my daughter. That's like what, part of my goal in life is just to make this world just a little bit better
Yeah.
for the next generation.
Yeah. That's called taking responsibility.
Yeah.
That's what that's called. And far too many, I'll get a little savage here. There's far too many passive, weak-minded soy boys, if you will,
Yeah.
that are passing the buck to somebody else, getting somebody else to raise their accidental child, and taking the cowardice easy way out. I can't even say easy. Even to say easy is to give them too much credit, but they know not what they do.
Yeah.
Most of them, again, just rinse and repeat. Like I was saying earlier, their fathers, most likely, statistically speaking, did that to them. They've never had a solid leader in their upbringing at all. If they did have a father, then I'll say it. He was a weak man. He was a weak man,
Yeah.
and far too many people are even terrified to even say that. And to your point, that's why I think this is so important, because so back to the streaming industry, which is where my passion really is. I could go on and on about this, but
Yeah.
I'll just keep it very simple in saying that the delinquency and the degeneracy in this space, in my personal opinion, in my professional opinion, yeah, I'll wear that badge. I've been doing this a long time, is completely and utterly unacceptable in my opinion. I want to encourage girls to be ladies.
Yeah.
I want to encourage boys to be gentlemen. I want to restore the lost art of civil discourse, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be able to bring back chivalry and modesty as best I can, because it's not dead. It's not. But right now it's an endangered species, and if we're not careful, it's going to be extinct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all tied into, and I know you recognize this, all of that is tied to, in some which way, shape, or form, the fruits of the Spirit. And where do the fruits of the Spirit come from? All of this comes from him.
Yeah.
So if I can even touch upon just this one thing, where somebody comes up to me and says, look, Chavez, I love what you said. I love your speech. I love it, all this or whatever. Then we have a deeper conversation. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? You have access to the same book I do.
Yeah.
I'm no different than you, man. I'm literally just the messenger. So go read, go learn,
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about the Bible is that it does transform us and it calls us to something higher. One of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control, and if I think that's one of the chief messages that we need to teach young men in particular right now is self-control. And stepping into that and embracing that fruit and being the leaders that I know they are capable of being. That's something that a lot of men are called to, but nobody's there to kind of hone that skill or hone that ability and teach them and encourage them in it, and they desperately need it right now. Because women will follow suit of a strong male leader. They will. And, we need to take responsibility in leading the culture and leading the charge and standing up for what is right, good, and beautiful for the sake of the women around us, for the sake of our daughters, and for the sake of our sons,
Well, it's so in this society that really primarily the nation, but really this is a worldwide symptom, what I'm talking about. But the roles are typically reversed.
Yeah.
They really are. And the most common misconception is that submission is a sign of weakness. And that is just not true at all. It's the most beautiful thing ever. But no, I've been, look, man, let me back up. I just want to back up real quick and touch up on Charlie Kirk again one last time. And I'm getting to a point as I say this, but I have been encouraged by many people much smarter than me, much smarter than me, to go into the debate space. And I know I would be a killer, man. I would be absolutely brutal. I'd be so good at it. But the problem with the debate space is that most people are overly hyper-focused on simply winning as opposed to actually changing or actually implementing real change and getting the other side to understand. That's what proper debating is. The problem is that it's become a competition. I won, you lost, and that's all that matters. Yeah. For the sake of degradation, what does that accomplish? What does that do, right? Now, why am I bringing that up? Because Charlie, as brilliant as he was, he knew what he was getting himself into, and it sounds like he was trying to get out of it, but unfortunately it was just too late, right? Yeah. And I'm bringing that up because in terms of people not being able to handle confrontation, back to the roles being reversed, it's the weirdest thing. I can't completely fine-tune where it came from. I really think that the industrial revolution is where this kind of originated from, as far as like women working, right?
Yeah.
And then that's like how it started. And then you had the bra and panty generation that they were just burning them. Like, we can do everything that the man can do, but even better.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, have fun. Watch what happens. Just watch you fall flat on your face,
Yeah.
right? But no, instead of men stepping up and saying, no, you're not going to have to do that. We don't want you to do that. We want you to do what you're called to do.
Yeah.
Raising children is the most important thing, in my opinion, that both couples can do, but especially the woman, the mother. That is priceless, and it's precious. What woman really, truly, look, of all the women I've ever interviewed, and there's been a lot of them and talked to, the majority of them, I can tell you strongly and collectively, the majority of them do not want to go to work. The majority of them do not want to compete against that of the opposite sex, let alone their own sex, right? And there are only two genders, right? Let me just say.
Yeah. There is an executive order. It has been decreed. There are only
touche. Hey, all the more reason, right? But my point in saying that is, look, everybody's got to answer to somebody, and it drives insecure, weak-minded women crazy when it's like, oh, did he just say patriarchy or hierarchy or submit and everything else? I'm like, look, man, I'm just the messenger. God's the one that set up the system, all right? If you want to get mad at anybody, you get mad at him, and watch how far that's going to get you, right? But as she submits to us, we submit to him.
Yeah.
That's not weakness. It's a beautiful design and a beautiful system that is literally perfect.
Yes.
Anything outside of that will not work.
Nope.
It's just that simple. Look
It's
at
disordered.
everything else around us, you know? So anyway.
Yeah, it's distorted. I mean, you even look back at like the original sin. I mean, it was a lack of one male leadership. Adam, like taking his responsibility seriously as the leader and a steward over his wife, and his wife not trusting Adam's leadership and ultimately falling into sin and being deceived, and here we are. That same pattern kind of repeats itself. But one of the most beautiful things about the marriage is that as we trust God and our wife trust us, there's this beautiful union that is taking place, where we can kind of make God's love manifest to the world by just this total trust in one another, and then too often you find that your spouse, when she's in, you're in total agreement with God and she's in total agreement with you and God, because in trusting you, she's also trusting God. You see your giftings and abilities come together and do something that only God can do through that relationship. But when you're out of step, man, it creates disorder in the relationship.
Well, so I'll add on to that, and those are very good points. This whole constant push and pull and this point of contention between both genders is completely unnecessary. What we should be doing is celebrating the differences and embracing those differences. Like, I'll be the first to say it. I mean, just like I was saying earlier, there's like my wife keeping me in check as far as like I already forgot what I said, like organization or remembering things or whatever. Here, see, I already forgot, right? But like, there's things that women can do that men will never, ever be able to do. And I'm not even talking about just, give birth. Like, that's the stupidest cliche, surface level, shallow answer that anybody can give. Of course, obviously, right? But apart from that, there are many, many things, countless things that women can do that men cannot. And guess what? Vice versa. Just embrace it. Women, there's things that men can do that you will never be able to do. Just know your role, know your place, and lean into it. There's nothing wrong with that. But instead, commercialism, and to a certain sense, even capitalism, really, and go, get a mentality, it has just completely been like, you know what, women? You've been oppressed. You've been suppressed for so long. It's time for you to rise up and you take control of your own fate and your own destiny and lead your own household or whatever. And then what ends up happening? They're absolutely miserable. They're divorced and they drop their kids off at daycare where they have a nanny or whatever raising their child. They come home to that child, or the child comes home to them rather, and they wonder, where's the disconnect here? I didn't teach my child this. Yeah, because you weren't freaking present, man.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Yeah.
It's cause and effect. It's action reaction.
The daycare is now raising your child. No, I love it, dude. I love it, man. The daycare is raising your child, or their peers. You have peers,
or the iPad, or the TV,
or the iPad,
or whatever.
And then you wonder why, there is this disconnect, or you wonder why they start to rebel, later on in their teenage years. Which, by the way, that's not normal. I know we treat it as normal, like the normal rebellious teen. I don't think that's actually normal. I don't think that's a good thing. Your kid shouldn't go through a period of time where they hate you. They do that because we teach that it's normal. They learn that it's normal from their peers, but that's not normal. I want to form a relationship with my daughters, and I have another baby on the way, so I'm expecting to have a son. In January.
Oh, so, few seconds. Pause right there. Yeah. Hey, can we get some W's in chat here? I'll do the first. Dude, I love that. Praise God. I love life. I love life.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome, and I'm really excited for it.
But two girls, hold on, sorry to interrupt again. Two girls, oh, bless your heart. You are in for a wild ride, my friend.
Yeah.
That's my last interruption, I promise. Go ahead.
No, I hear you, dude. I have heard from some people, though, that, like, fathers that have, like, a lot of girls, they get well taken care of by their girls. So I'm looking forward to that phase.
Yeah. Hey, they're natural. Look, women are natural caregivers. They're natural nurturers. They have this intuition. One of the things they can do that we can never do. Yeah. Their intuition is unmatched, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, fathers and men have an intuition as well, but it's a different kind, like survival instincts, testosterone, where's the exit door in case crap goes down kind of thing, right? But women having that intuition, dude, having a wife and two girls, dude, I didn't actually think about that. That's a very valid point. You're good, man. You're pretty good in that way. It's going to be pretty hard in the beginning, and then you get them through their teenage years. That's going to be the hardest.
Yeah.
That's going to be the hardest.
Well,
But you know,
it helps that my wife is like a really good wife, man. Like I have a rock star as a wife. She's a phenomenal. She's,
love that.
supportive. She's loving. She's compassionate. She challenges me to be a better man. So I have like a really good marriage, and I'm very grateful for that. So we tackle this together. And just to speak real quick to that natural intuition, even in toddlers, man. So I took a nap earlier before I came on. I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and lately I've just been up to like midnight. But I took a nap, I laid down on the couch, I laid back, and my 2-year-old comes over, and she pulls a blanket and puts it on me and gives me a pillow to lay on, and you can already see that nurturing spirit in her. And I feel like if this is a boy, he would like jump and like elbow me in the
Daddy,
chest or
wake up,
something.
play with me. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's beautiful. But anyway, I don't think it's normal for them to rebel, and that's why it's all the more important that we foster good family values. That we are the ones primarily raising our children. That we're the ones building up their morals and their values, and we're not letting them get raised by the internet. Going back to this Kirk situation, this kid sounded like he was like a chronic Reddit, chronically online, and that's how he got radicalized. I don't want that for our kids, man.
Yeah.
They deserve better.
Yeah. You touched upon something very, very true. The younger generation, and I'm not going to like pull my ageism card, being 40, and most of these youngsters, they're 20 some or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that combination, again, if this is indeed the shooter, he was, let me start off by saying colleges are a breeding ground for complacency, misery, rage, ignorance, anger, frustration, and other types of indoctrination of just, quite frankly, at the end of the day, teaches death,
Yeah.
chaos, and mayhem. I'm going to start off by saying that. Mix that with any kind of broken homes,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, it's a recipe. It's a cocktail for disaster.
Yeah. I mean, no wonder these kids are ticking time bombs. No wonder they're cutting off their own body parts and self-mutilation because of their identity crisis, because they don't know that their Lord and Savior has given them an identity, and they are so desperately looking for it elsewhere. And God's just like, I gave you an identity. Stop trying to fill in this void with nonsense. I'm here, but you are so self-absorbed. You are so self-absorbed that you can't even hear me screaming.
Yeah.
Because to you, it's barely, if anything, it is a whisper, but you snuffed that out. You're the one who's leaving me. I've never left you. I will always be here for you, but you have to make the decision. I do not push myself on you, my dear child. I love you. Come back to me.
Preach,
You know what I
man.
mean?
Yeah.
It's so sad.
You
so
know,
sad.
and then when you have somebody that tells them the truth, it sounds visceral to these people because they've built their identity on lies, man. So when they hear the truth, they have this just gut-wrenching reaction to it. But I do think we have all the more reason to share the truth with them. And for anybody listening, it's like, sincerely, what Chavez just said, man. You need to take that in and hear us. God designed you in a certain way. And don't deviate from that. Trust the body that He gave you. It's beautiful. You were fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah. I have, so touching up on debating, again, real quick. And again, I've already vowed one of the biggest things, that what happened to Charlie Kirk, one of the biggest impacts was, I had a little mini revelation. I don't want to sound dramatic, but it wasn't but maybe 2 weeks ish before that I was like, you know what? I don't think I should do debates. I don't think I should do it. I can, yes, again, I'd be really good. I mean, there's many mentors of mine that are willing to help me out in going down that path. But I just don't think I can do it. And then what happened to Charlie Kirk, something hit me, and I was like, that's why. That's why right there. I'm not afraid to die. I want to be very clear about that. I embrace death. I actually can't wait for the end times. I'm kind of a psycho in that way. But I feel an obligation, a wonderful, beautiful responsibility, not burden, but an obligation and a responsibility to be present for my family, my wife, and my 2 kids, and especially my kids, because again, one of them is autistic, and the other one we're almost positive is going to be, but she's a little younger, but we're seeing the symptoms. My wife needs me, absolutely. My kids need me, but especially my kids. So why I'm bringing that up is because, as I said before, I always aim to try to restore the lost art of civil discourse.
Yeah.
And I realize now that in the debate space, that's not the place for it. Yeah. Because when you I'm going to say something really savage. I made a post a few days ago. It's the only one I made on Twitter, because everybody and their mother, these snakes and these opportunists and these pieces of garbage who are trying to capitalize on a man's death, right? I was like, I don't want to partake in that. I was asked to be in multiple streams, multiple Twitter spaces, and I said no to every single one. I said, I just want to be at peace right now. I want to think, I want to meditate, I want to pray, I want to read, I want to talk to my wife, I want to do all these things. But I mustered up the courage to do just one simple post. And I told you I'm a savage realist. I'm at the point now where I firmly believe, I haven't completely concluded this mindset. I want to be very clear. This is not my new truth, my truth. This is something that I'm working through. I'm almost at the point now, when I saw these idiots celebrate a man's death the way that they did, including, but not limited to, making t-shirts and profiting off of those t-shirts being made for their own personal gain. A picture of a man dying with blood flying out of his neck. Pardon my French, fucking disgusting.
It is disgusting,
absolutely
man.
Detestable. Okay, and I'm bringing that up because my post said I can cuss like a sailor if I get mad enough. That's my anger problem. Bear with me. I apologize. But the reason why I'm saying that is because my post said this. I'm almost completely convinced at this point, I'm paraphrasing this, that there are only 2 kinds of people in this world. And I'm quoting people, and you'll see why here in just a minute. There are sinners who either reject Christ. There are sinners who accept Christ. That's one category.
Yeah.
The other category, I think, is flat out demons.
Yeah. I'm
sorry to say that. I hate to say it. But at this point now, look, I couldn't stand Biden. Yeah. I can't stand this non-tent poser, degenerate delinquent named Destiny on Kick. I can't stand that guy, okay? Yeah. But I don't want him dead. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to weaponize my community. I'm not calling for, hey, everybody kill this guy. Like, what is wrong with us, man? Dude, today is becoming the modern-day Coliseum in the digital age, man. And it irritates me to no end. It's so detestable and unacceptable. And that simple post, of course, it didn't get much traction because, people are terrified and I'm a smaller account, whatever. I'm not trying to get traction. I just had to get that thought out in my mind. And my standard now at this point is very simply put, and you can call me judgmental. I don't even care because you don't know.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening to this, you have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that if I'm going to ask you a question and you believe that there's more than 2 genders, right off the bat, you're either a lost soul and you're a sinner and you're rejecting Christ, or you're a demon. Yeah. It's one of those 2. It's not too late. It's not too late if you're a sinner who's rejecting Christ. We can work with that. Yeah. But then I will continue to tactfully, strategically ask additional questions for you to expose your psyche to figure out where you've come from, where you want to go, and if you are an actual demon.
Yeah.
This is becoming my conclusion. Again, I need to go to scripture and I want to see what it says about modern day law. I want to see what it says about possessions, because one thing that Mark Driscoll said, I totally agree with him.
I love that guy, man.
Oh, he's brutal. He's brutal. This is why I love him so much. I do disagree with some of his things, but that's irrelevant right now. He said it so eloquently that basically it's new days, new times, things have changed, but it's the same demons.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I'm gonna add on to, and then I'll shut my mouth after this. The last point in the post that I was referencing is the fact that I'm trying to find my words here.
Oh, well, you do that. Hey,
Yeah,
thanks
go
for
ahead,
the
man. Go
follow,
ahead.
Unkempt Bush. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
By the way, y'all share out this the stream, man. Show some love. I appreciate you being here. Uh, this is my first time on here. I freaking love what Ryan's doing, man. Seriously, really good production. Great questions. Is not weak minded. Embraces this head on and attacks this head on. I don't mean to sound hostile, but like sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But anyway, so the last closing point that I was going to make is what really inspired that post is like, okay, Jesus died for all of us. He died for our sins. You know who he didn't die for?
Yeah.
He did not die for Satan and his demons.
Yeah. No, he
It's
didn't.
just that simple. Now, why can I say such a savage statement? Oh, Chavez, you're being judgmental. You shall not judge. No. You need to understand something first and foremost, okay? We as Christians are called to judge. We are. That's not a self-righteous thing. Now,
Rightly.
how do I know
We're
that?
called to judge rightly. If they just read
Absolutely.
the rest of the verse, they would
Absolutely,
be able
man.
to discern that
100%.
it's not about being a hypocrite in your judgment, but not judging at all. It's you have to judge correctly.
Exactly. And to I was actually going to say that, but to add on to that, you will, what does Matthew teach us? You will know them by the fruit
Yeah.
they bear. I am very confident that I am very in tune to people's, again, mannerisms, human behavior, psychology. Do they look at me in the eye when they talk to me? How do they conduct themselves? Are they professional? Do they have low impulse control? Do their feelings and emotions overrule their logic and reason if they had any logic and reason to begin with, right?
Yeah.
If there's anything that is the antithesis of the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, love, joy, oh my God, now I'm drawing a
Peace.
blank. Love, joy, patience. Oh my God, dude, I say this all the
Peace.
time, and now I'm drawing a blank. Peace, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and faithfulness and self-control,
Yes.
dude. So I'm so amped up. I
Nah,
can't
it's
even get
okay.
my words right. Anything that is the antithesis of that is selfish motive, which stems from pride, which I firmly believe is the first sin that was ever committed.
Yeah.
That's what Satan wanted. He wanted glory. He wanted his own kingdom. He wanted what God had. Pride is the great excuser and justifier of one's actions today.
Yeah.
And it all stems from pride. Anything that is the antithesis of the fruits of the Spirit, by definition, is from the devil, and that's demonic behavior. The only question is whether or not the individual and the entity that I'm interacting with is aware of that issue,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. So that was the last thing I was going to say, kind of long-winded.
No, that makes sense. You know, that exact assessment is what ultimately actually got me my first shadow ban on TikTok, because I made like a joke about like
That means you're doing
these-
something
the-
right, brother.
these-
Welcome to the club. Woo!
these gender confused people being demon possessed, bro. I'm and because I recognize that very early on, and it's like I like to point that I feel the same way that's like a good litmus test for me to really know if you're somebody that is I can even reason with. If you've suspended
Yep.
that fundamental reality, that something so obvious that it's observable with your two eyes, and you've rejected that, it's like I don't even know where I can have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And
Again, 2 plus 2 is 4 and nothing other than 4. You got people out there telling you 2 plus 2 is 5, 2 plus 2 is blue, 2 plus 2 is, depending on the mood I'm in, it might be something else, right? No. 2 plus 2 is 4. Anything outside of that makes you a liar.
yeah.
Sorry.
So
But go
it's
ahead,
like
sorry.
my only recourse is to, not engage, or let's get ready for the exorcism, man. Cause I don't really know how
Yeah.
else to actually engage with you, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's like when you build, I was saying this before, when you build your identities on lies, like they will viscerally react to the truth, and that's that demonic presence in them, seething because they are being confronted with truth, maybe for the first time in their lives, and that's where you have to trust God and trust the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit to kind of wear them down, break them down, and hopefully they'll have this moment where somebody can break through and reach them. I want to shift gears a little bit and kind of just get back to your story, man, because you you were right in saying that I don't think as Christians we all have just one central story as part of our testimony. Some people can, have that central story, but there's a lot of things that God does throughout the course of our life that are profound, like I have like this story of
It's
how
a
God
journey.
saved me. Yeah. But then I have also like just story after story after story of God just doing incredible things in my life, because this life
Mm-hmm.
has been just an adventure for me,
Mm-hmm.
me getting married to, me going to India and riding a motorcycle through the back alleys of India to pray for someone. Like just crazy stuff happens, and we all have crazy stories. And you had a couple things that you wanted to touch on that I would love for you to share.
Yeah, I mean, well, as stated before, yeah, I think there's multiple testimonies. One that we had previously touched upon was essentially the I'm not trying to be facetious or sarcastic. The world calls it mentally disabled. No, it was a retarded preacher. I'm not trying to be funny. It was an actual retarded preacher. And along with that, he brought in a retarded choir. And some people might smirk or even giggle at saying that, but when you hear, I'm not going to do this any justice because you had to be there to experience it. But I'll try to keep it short and sweet. But it's very simple. I was very young. I was in my late teens. I'd just gotten back from a tour with Crowns at the time. I think we were somewhere way up north. I don't remember exactly where. But I came back home, and a buddy of mine wanted me to attend church with him or whatever. Unfortunately, something came up and lack of communication. I ended up showing up, and he was just nowhere to be found. It was an honest mistake. It's no big deal. I was like, well, I'm already here, so might as well listen to the message, right? In which I should have been going there for myself to begin with. Let me start there, right? But now I was going for a friend, but I was like, let me listen to this message. And it just so happened that the the preacher was we could understand what he was saying. We could, but he was able to walk. It wasn't like one of, again, I'm not trying to be funny. It wasn't like one of these necessarily, but it was a different kind of I guess phase or level of mental retardation or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that first and foremost, it's kind of shaking me up just even talking about it. What he preached and what we could understand, it wasn't just from the heart. It was not just from the heart. I'm telling you, to this day, God spoke through that man. He did. He absolutely did. And I know people will probably hear that and be like, oh, whatever, God speaks through in various ways. And it's true, he does. But what he preached about, essentially, and I'm just going to sum this up, but basically, he was talking about griping and complaining. And man, I don't know, something hit me, dude. I fell to my knees. I started bawling like a baby, and I started getting mad at myself. This is when my anger problem was starting to get at its peak. I was so mad at myself. I'm like, who am I to get irritated with myself? Who am I to get irritated with other people? Who am I to gripe and complain about stubbing my toe, and then next thing I know, there's a hole in the wall? What is wrong with me? And then it came to the realization that basically this man before me is more of a man than I will ever, ever, ever be, even now to this day. And all my wisdom and all my experience and all my knowledge, I can't even come close to that man's dedication, because he started going into his own personal life. And man, if you didn't know any better, the guy should have either A, been dead because of his condition, or B, because of, tapped into his condition, somebody could have robbed and killed him. He started like sharing multiple stories of how he should have been dead in a certain way, or could have been dead, right?
Yeah.
But all that led him to this point, and humbling little old tiny Chavez, and of course, however everybody else is in there. And then to make matters even more humiliating for myself, because it's all about me, right? It's all about me. Yeah. It's always been about me, Ryan. Always me. He brings up on stage a retarded choir. And I'm telling you, it was the worst thing I had ever heard in my entire life, Ryan. It was terrible. It was out of tune. It was off key. And I cried even harder, because I know God... That was music to his ears, man.
Yeah.
I'm unworthy. I'm unworthy to even tell this story, because in that moment there was no emotional high, okay? I am very familiar with praise and worship. I have more qualms with my own brothers and sisters who preach a false doctrine,
Yeah.
those are the people that really, really make me livid.
Yeah.
We're not going to go down that road. My point is this, that, I mean, you want to talk about humbling yourself. Chavez, it's not about you, dear son. It never has been. So just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. Look at what you're hearing. Look at what you're experiencing firsthand. This is a story you can't fully share with somebody that they'll actually understand. They will never be here to experience. No words can express what was actually happening in that moment. And that's just one small testimony of hundreds, man.
Wow,
right,
man.
So I don't know if that's like, dude, that's incredible, that's wild. Some people it impacts them, some people it's like whatever. But I mean, for me, that's just one of so many others, man.
No,
And
it's
wild.
profound, bro. God uses what we would perceive maybe as the foolish things of this world to confound the wise, and he used this moment, that maybe, outwardly doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but he used it to get to you, man. And I think that's beautiful. And I've also, I've seen what we would define as bad worship in, like, when I was in India, what would sound not like a cheerful noise. It would sound, awful to the ears. But seeing these people in India that I was with, singing off key and, hitting their instruments, it was beautiful.
Off time,
Yeah.
not in sync, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, though, because they were totally surrendered to the Lord. I mean, just in a way that your average American in their high production church with their high production band and their perfect, choreographed, worship routine isn't even remotely close to, and it was like you get a glimpse of the kingdom of God at work, and it's just like, there it is, man. That's the kingdom, and it's like, it sounds to me like that's what you got a glimpse of. God gave you a glimpse of his kingdom and used it as an opportunity to humble you and ultimately draw you closer to him. And that is beautiful, man. That is profound.
That choir, in that it was two songs. I think it was two songs. It's such a long time ago, but that choir, in the time that they sang, like, I could do this for the rest of my life as far as musicianship and write the most beautiful songs ever, and it still can't hold a candle to what I experienced that night. I'm unworthy to even attempt. I can't. That's the best way that I can explain it. For the same reason you can't exactly describe God's love. Nobody can. Nobody can. You can write all the poetry you want. It has great intentions, not to try to minimize the importance of it, but it can't hold a candle. They are filthy rags, all of it. Any attempt to even think and try to fathom the unconditional love of our Lord and Savior is unworthy. And the fact that he actually loves us enough to give us a choice too, like, that's freaking wild, dude. I gave you everything, and I am giving you also with that free will and the choice to accept or reject me. That's on you, man. That's on you. I will always love you. I'll always be here. Always be here.
And it's a profound choice, man, like to follow him, and it's like, when you are ultimately putting your trust in the Creator's hand and following his lead and committing your life to him, that you're actually, like, you're committing your life into the most capable hands possible. So it's like, whatever he brings you through, that you're in the hands of the Creator of the universe. And that should, for your average person, give you great confidence. And knowing that he is with you and that he will not leave you and that he has a plan that is far beyond anything that you could possibly imagine. So with that story, man, how did that change you? How did that shape you from that moment forward? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, because I'm just a transparent person. I did my thing. I was moved for a handful of hours, and then I went right back to sinning, and it was great. Let me tell you, God showed his glory, and as we all do, I walked away. Filthy rags, whatever you want to call it. I said, nah, man, it's cool. I got my emotional fix. I'm out of here. I'm good. It wasn't until years later that out of nowhere I remember that story. I don't remember where I was. It is a part of a testimony. I don't remember where I was, but it was a few short years later. And then out of nowhere I fell to my knees and started crying again. And I was like, what? And this is me getting mad at myself. What the crap was wrong with me? What is wrong with me? The great disease of self is so toxic.
Yeah.
You want to know why I can sniff out pride a mile away? It's because I used to be loaded with it, and I still technically am now. Nothing's changed. The only difference is that I'm well aware of it, I'm in tune to it, and I do my best to try to shut it down and kill it every single morning. And when I sense that, especially within my own gender, I am very, very in tune to that. But it's extended way beyond my gender, and it's just the world. I mean, I love asking people a simple question. You know, when was the last time you apologized?
Yeah.
Right? When was the last time you cried? My own personal favorite philosophical, theological question. What is your personal standard? Chavez, what do you mean? What is your own personal standard, your foundation that you stand upon that impacts and determines what decisions you make, the things you say, the actions you take, everything? What is your standard? More than half the time, they don't have an answer because they don't have a standard. Or what's worse, their standard is, this is my personal favorite, oh, whatever best benefits me, whatever I think might be in the best interest of me and my journey and what I'm doing. A lot of me, I, me. Again, the disease of self, man. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay. And then I figure out how to work my way.
I like that question, though. The when's the last time you apologized? I like that a lot. Actually, so a couple weeks ago, I had posted, you're chronically online, and you see some things happen that you're, genuinely like, oh, that's good. It's good that happened. There's that story of, Trump using the military to, bomb cartel members, which I'm in favor of. Yeah, do that. But
that makes you racist, Ryan. Careful.
Yeah. Well, I was watching the video, and I laughed. I laughed at it, and somebody I know personally reached out to me. Is like, dude, like, you're basically like, you're better than that. And at first I was like, nah, it's not, it's fun, it's not that big of a deal, But then I really thought about it, and I'm like, I had to like look inward and really wrestle with myself and be like, you know what? No, I messed up. I should not have laughed. I should not have delighted myself in the demise of these people, because it is not that they didn't deserve it, and not that we shouldn't use the military to against them, but what it would like, that's an ugly part of me that needed to be addressed, and I need to and I apologize. I was like, you know what, like, I try not to be somebody that is delighting in something happening to another person, but like, it happened to me, and as I was ashamed of myself, and I had to take responsibility of that. And that's a good question, man. It's just another reminder to me that, like, we have to search inward and ask ourselves these questions, because it's important.
Well, look at our own. I don't necessarily. I mean, we can if you want to. I have no problem talking about it, but I don't necessarily want to get political. But just look at our so-called leaders.
Yeah.
In generally speaking, I'm not even just talking about Trump and the administration. I'm just talking about our leaders in the U.S. for many, many, many years. I honestly, sincerely cannot remember the last time that we ever heard any leader apologize. And back to, submission is a sign of weakness, which is, we've already debunked, is not true.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing about saying I'm sorry. That's like, you can't say I'm sorry. That's a sign of weakness. Well, is it? Or is it reconciliation and self-awareness and self-accountability and actually being more of a man, in this case man, because it's always hard for us to apologize, right? Is it actually a step up in being more of a man to admit, you know what, I was wrong. Ryan, I have wronged you, and I'm sorry, brother. Let's work this out, or whatever. Yeah. That's how it should be. Again, civil discourse, or even just agree to disagree or whatever. But in this case, we're going to such far extremes that we're literally going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Because we disagree with them. And that to me is, that's why I had this new kind of savage take on life. And I've always been brutal, because evil doesn't play nice. No. And there absolutely comes a time where you have to fight fire with fire. I don't condone violence, but at the same time, sorry, my phone is blowing up.
It's okay.
But at the same time, there's a time and a place for everything. And one other thing that I'm a Proverbs fanatic. I love Proverbs. I can never remember the actual chapters and the verses, but I know some of the sayings. And one of the biggest things that I read so long ago that has always stuck with me is this. This just freaking blows my mind because it carries such weight. A wise man is at peace with his enemies.
Yeah.
Like, think about the fact that you are so smart and wise that even those who you acknowledge to be your enemies and they know you are their enemy, you are even at peace with them. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, let that sink in for a minute, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you go into a wise man keeps himself under control, a fool exposes his folly immediately without delay, that kind of thing. I mean, what kind of world do we live in? And when you're in tune to that, and you see these radical and a little political, but these radical leftists. But at this point, I'm gonna let me take a step back. I want to be very clear about something. I say this in Twitter Spaces all the time. I want to be really, really clear about something. I do not look at politics as left and right, blue and red, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, liberal, conservative, whatever. I don't care about those categories. I don't care about the titles. I don't care about any of the whatever. I look at politics as up and down. Is this for Christ or is this against Christ? It's just that simple. Just like my camera, black and white. Black and white. Is this going to increase life? Right? Abortion, right?
Yeah.
Is this going to increase life or is this going to decrease life?
Yeah.
Oh, we shall not kill. Okay, I'm against this. That's common sense.
Yeah.
Look, Jesus made it very simple, man. He
Yeah.
really did. Right?
People overcomplicate it, you know.
They do.
His commandments are not burdensome. They're not confounding. They're simple for us to understand. We overcomplicate them, and we try to come up with these loopholes. I mean, that was part of Jesus's issue with the Pharisees, is that they added to the commandments of God. You know, they added their own man-made traditions and their own interpretations that were divorced from the actual commandments themselves, and created burdens for the people. And, you know, that's what we do by overcomplicating things as an excuse ultimately to sin, you know, and what wisdom ultimately is fearing the Lord and turning from sin and seeking God with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul, you know?
And, you know, those commandments, I mean, they're there for us. They're not this like obligation or like, oh, it's a law I gotta follow. Like it shouldn't be approached like that. Like if you look at it, since you're so freaking selfish and it's all about you anyway, if you look at it through the eyes of, oh, this is for my own good, well then lean into it. It's there. Look, there's no way if anybody who's really truly open-minded and they were a non-believer and they pick any 5 verses you want out of Proverbs, any 5, and actually apply it and meditate on that for 2 months. If they could do that and they come out like unchanged, there's something seriously wrong with you. The issue with that is that nobody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody, because they're so freaking lazy.
Yeah.
They'll lose interest. The attention span is gone. Or worse, they're illiterate and they can't even read. I'm not even trying to be funny. That's a real thing in this day and age still. Everything's digital this, digital that. Auto, voice or TTS, like text to speech, speech to text or whatever. How many people can actually write? How many people can actually spell? Like, don't even get me started on the degeneracy within our society as a whole in general, having nothing to do with streaming, but the lack of upbringing in that way. But anyway, but I'll say this as well. I'm so passionate about this stuff, and I don't want to necessarily continue me, but I want to respect your time as well, because I mean this is your show and whatnot.
Hey man, I love these conversations that we're having, man. So I'm okay with it. If you want to spend a little bit more time on something, I'm good, man.
Well, I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. I'll tell you really at the end of the day, well, kind of coming back to Kirk again. I mean, I'm telling you, dude, this was something in me has changed. This is brand new to me, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a dramatic person in this way, but there are definitely some other things I'm beginning to come to terms with, but I want to make sure that it's spiritually sound first, before I make it the actual truth. Not my version of the truth, not your truth, nobody else's truth, but the truth. And what do I mean by that? The division in this nation, and again, what happened with Kirk, the time for, I really sincerely believe that the time for turning the other cheek has come and gone. I'm not advocating for violence. Okay, I'm not saying let's go fight, which is what those radical lunatics and those demons, right? We talk about demons. Yeah. That's what demons would say. But what I am advocating for, and you're going to hear me say this a lot in multiple spaces and streams, I'm going to say this at DreamHack and everywhere else, in any panels I speak on or whatever, is defend.
Yeah.
Defend. We need to defend honor, dignity, respect. Again, all the fruits of the Spirit that I apparently can't say. Yeah. We should, instead of coming to demons with open arms and embracing, that's not how Satan works. No. So why should I do it to a demon, right? Instead of that, here's what we should do. We should come to these demons with a wide, broad, impenetrable shield.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily a sword. I'm not ready to say sword yet because that's violence. But a shield.
You know what? No, we need a sword. The sword of, the Spirit, the sword of truth, like we need that. The full armor of God. We need that, bro. And it doesn't mean we have to go ahead. Wield an actual sword or, do actual violence, but that we need to use the word of God to cut through the darkness of these people's hearts if they have ears to hear.
That's true. Be that as it may, the reason why I was reluctant to say it is because I didn't want there to be a false. I mean, you and I understand that, but for anybody listening to this, people take stuff I say out of context all the time. But I will say, so to add on to that, the sword is a representation of your words, essentially. To be very, very clear, I want everybody to know that it's not a physical action of striking down our enemies. Yeah. Like the metaphor is, strike down your enemies with your words, right? So I would agree with that for sure, and I like that analogy. But the main focus for me is the shield, and that's being able to take a hit. Now, here's the really cool part about it is that hopefully, if you do have a solid brother or sister in Christ specifically, or even just a common senser, let's try to take God out of the equation for a minute, even though that's impossible, right? But let's just say that a common senser has a common goal with you, and they're willing to carry that shield as well. Well, just like a legion of Spartans, impenetrable Spartans, they would have their broad shields up like this, and they were vulnerable to their right and to their left until their fellow brethren came next to them and protected them.
Yeah.
Left and right. That's how I believe strongly we need to approach these types of demons, to the point to where they give up, they turn away, there's nothing else they can do, and they say, you know what, we can't break this line. We can't break it. We have to go back to the shadows. Then amen, we have victory over this battle. Not the war, because the war has already been won.
Yeah.
But for the battle that we have here on earth, that I feel is an attainable, realistic spiritual goal.
Yeah.
Whereas before, what we were doing is we were going to the demon, just take it, punched in the face and gut it or whatever the case may be. And then it became, let me back up and maybe this will really drive the point home. A few decades ago, evil was lurking in the shadows. It was secretive, it was dark, it was mysterious, and it was brutal and all that other stuff. Fast forward just a few short decades later, which is roughly about 20-ish years ago, it then evolved into hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Hiding in plain sight, right? Keep that term in mind. Fast forward now into 2025, it's out in the open. Everybody can see it. The agenda's there, the narrative's there, the push is there, the indoctrination's there. And Satan is like, I am here and I am ready to freaking rumble. Let's do this, right? No pun intended, we're on Rumble platform. But like that's where we're at. And if you look all throughout history, not just biblical history, but actual American history, or not American, but Roman history and older history in general, I mean, it repeats itself. That saying is absolutely true. And I'm telling you, just as well as I do, especially in the Old Testament, God would wipe out civilizations, man. Look, and Jesus even said, I came to bring the sword.
Yeah.
Okay?
A lot of
there's
people
compassion.
Too, they think that God is different than he was in the... No, he's not. You ever read the story of Ananias and Sapphira? They lied, and he dropped them like that. Boom. Done. Yep. And when he's coming back, what is he coming back? He's coming back with fire in his eyes and a sword in his hand. He's coming
Yeah.
back to judge, and his judgment, by the way, is going to start in the church. Which is why I
Hmm.
actually think one of the things that we need to focus on is that brotherhood, man, is focusing on
Hmm.
building up one another, and I think, we have, seeker sensitive churches that are focused solely on trying to reach people that actually don't really care about the word, and in the process they water down the gospel, and their people are unequipped and ill prepared for the devices of the enemy.
Yeah. I call that type of blasphemy feel good
Hmm.
ministry. Here's what God is going to do for you. Here's what can happen to you. If you give this, this will happen to you, you. Like the passive destruction that comes with that feel good emotional high, for the same reason that praise and worship has the same negative effect if not done correctly. Right? Oh, thank you, God. This is beautiful. All right, here's my money. Let me tithe or whatever. Oh, God bless you. Thank you so much. They
Yeah.
hit their quota for the end of the month. Hey, we have a new member. I think one of the greatest heresies of all time. This is a very unpopular opinion. I'm actually still doing additional research on this, even now after all these months. Is the great lie of, oh, I prayed a prayer once. That's actually unbiblical.
Yeah.
Nowhere in Scripture does it say, oh, I prayed a prayer and God came into my heart. Like there's an idea there that's true, absolutely, but Satan is so cunning and so clever that he will use the very word of God to try to manipulate what you are perceiving to be your own personal truth and tie into the feelings and emotions that will lead you down a path of irrational thought that will absolutely be self-destructive, because he's out there to steal, kill, and destroy anything that he can in his path, right? So anyway, I have more qualms. Like I said, I have more qualms with churches and my own brothers and sisters in Christ, because the minute you say you're a brother or sister of mine in Christ, you better believe that accountability is very, very high. And it goes
Yeah.
both ways. This is not me false flexing, Ryan.
Yeah.
It would be a disservice to both you and me if you saw me do something that you disagreed with and you didn't hold me accountable. Now, let's talk. Guess
Yeah.
what? Let's fellowship
Yeah.
about it. Let's confront each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a negative connotation and I get defensive and I call you this and I call you that.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Let's talk and let's interact and let's fellowship.
Yeah.
So many people don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and
Sadly.
and if you really love your brother and sister, you're gonna rebuke them. You're gonna call them back into,
Yep.
God's perfect standard. And another thing too is, I agree with you that it's not just praying a prayer and saying I believe in Jesus. Because belief actually requires something of you. It's not
Hmm.
it's not a passive thing that you do. It's something that you act on.
Hmm.
And that's why I believe, in Revelations 14:12, it says that, the patience of the saints is the people of God who keep his commands and remain faithful to Jesus, because there's an
Hmm.
action coupled with that belief. Your belief
Yeah.
has to lead you to do something. When Peter stepped out of the boat and he walked on water and he did the impossible, there was an action that took place when he stepped off that boat to Jesus.
Hmm.
He walked
Yeah.
out to him. He trusted him. And
Hmm.
in that moment, now his trust faltered, and he ended up sinking,
Hmm.
but he still took a step, and I think many Christians don't get that second part of it, that part of what it means to believe Jesus is to trust him with your entire life and obey everything that he's asked you to do. Do what he's asked you to do. Jesus
Hmm.
says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So, obedience to what he's called us to is the demonstration of how we love him, and I think that is, something that, a lot of Christians do need to hear, because you have
Yeah.
these people that just, they say a prayer and they think that's it. They've done their due diligence, but no, there is more to it than that.
Yeah. Paul Washer, one of my personal favorite pastors, that man is, golly, you want to talk about being humble. That
Yeah.
guy he's a savage, way more than I am, that's for sure. He he preaches, I'm not doing this any justice, but I'm going to sum this up by basically saying that he preaches that we are to constantly uh, Paul Washer talks about Paul in the Bible, right? That Paul,
Yeah.
Saul, Paul, right? Saying that we are to constantly examine ourselves,
Yeah.
test yourselves, and persevere through that. That's when you really know if you are coming out refined as gold when you're thrown into the fire, that kind of thing. It's not, oh, I prayed a prayer, I'm good to go, woohoo, right? To your point, I absolutely agree with that. It's a constant test each and every single day. And I'll tell you right now, more being a believer in an unbelieving world and being a Christian in the one true faith as opposed to other religions. I hate the word religion, but an actual faith of Christianity, right? It is literally the hardest thing that any human being on earth can do, more than being a father, as it relates to us, more than being a husband, more than being a brother, because you have to die to yourself from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed. Every day you live is just constant sin. Sin, 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 and more of it. And when you think you're done, no, let's have a little bit more. More and more sin. And that constant examination of yourself, right, and self-development. That's why I'm so keen to self-development. I love to see people better themselves. And even if they don't recognize where it comes from, if something is objectively good, I know where that good comes from, even if they can't recognize that. But that's my moment to try to help and assist with giving them a slight casual nudge, and let's see if we can take this conversation even further. But I have a savage take on that too. I'm not here to save people. I don't have a ticker. I don't have a check mark or whatever. My goal in life is very, very simple, including my own family. I'm here to make believers think and to make thinkers believe. That's my goal in life, to whatever extent that is, man. And that's what I've been trying to do for 40 years now at this point.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, we're called to make disciples of all nations, so that's part of it, man, is just investing in people. And I think right now, more than ever, we really do need to return to that, because the world is evil, man. It's spinning out of control. And I hate to say this, but I do not think Charlie Kirk is going to be the last person, high
definitely
profile
not.
person. I do think more of this is to come. And I don't know if you feel it, man, but I do feel this shift, man. I was saying in my stream yesterday that I feel more galvanized than I ever have to do what I'm doing, man, because I feel like God is calling up believers to be bold and to stand up when standing is the hardest, and to speak the truth no matter the cost. And that's going to take a high degree of courage. And Charlie, said it best, is that courage is one of the highest virtues. Is the virtue in which all virtues are built upon. And we need men of God to be courageous, and stand against these people that seek to intimidate us and seek to try to beat us into submission, where we don't step into who God is calling us to be and step out in faith and trust that God is going to move in a mighty way. And I'm like so emboldened right now, and I do believe that God is going to use someone like me and someone like you to do incredible good in this world, if only we are willing to answer the call.
Yeah. Well, that's why I personally, I feel that I recognized a very interesting, unique spiritual opportunity to try to be a light in a dark place. And I don't mean to sound self-righteous. I'm just being honest. I see an opportunity to help encourage and motivate a younger generation to contribute to society, to inform, to educate, and to teach, as opposed to being a stupid leech and suck the life out of the next of kin for the younger generation, right? And it's to be able to be in the world but not of the world, and one of the most vile, disgusting, toxic markets and industries in this entire world. Because remember, the streaming industry is an extension of the entertainment industry, and that's where the devil does most of his work, right? Movies and TV shows and so on and so forth.
I mean, you're seeing too, like, people in the streaming industry becoming quite high profile. I mean, they're celebrities in their own right, and shaking arms with, former celebrities. They're starting to eclipse them in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And many of those people are what I call, they're non-tent posers, man. They're posing as content creators when all reality, all they're doing is like basically tying up in a nice package, a little bow and a present, the same exact garbage and filth of, again, me. I mean, all look, basically all they're doing is conditioning, mental conditioning for pride,
Yeah.
for more and more pride. The degeneracy, for example, IRL content is the absolute shame. They're all trying to one up each other.
Yeah, it's
What's the new shock and awe crap that I? Well, let's say, how many grandmothers can I smack today? How many paintballs can I shoot at innocent people as they walk by? Let me one up that guy. Oh, this guy did that. Hey, I got something else or whatever. Like, dude, these children, these fools, some of them are demons, not all of them. Some of them have just lost their way, but all of them are fools nonetheless, and they need a course correction. Otherwise, it's going to be too late, man, and they will die. They will lose their life on a live stream, all for the sake of a thumbs up or a like or an impression or a view or whatever. Some of these people aren't even necessarily doing this for money. They crave the popularity, and they're just speeding up the process of going to their grave, man.
Yeah.
Just saying.
You know what I think of, like these IRL streams? They're the real world and Jersey Shore of the modern, this day and age. That's essentially what they are. It's the same kind of slop and it's low IQ nonsense that is used basically to pacify the masses, and it has no real substance.
Yeah.
And we're entering, like, honestly, what, like an episode of Black Mirror that's just really dystopian, where you have these
Yeah.
people in these IRL streams that are doing outrageous content, that is just getting more and more extreme. We saw, what is it, last month, I think, that one guy get essentially beat to death
Yep.
on camera. Basically, he died because he was going through torture for views and likes. And I thought about that, and I'm like, this is like a very good picture into the window of the human soul, because not only are these quote unquote entertainers doing something that I think is awful, but and there's definitely fault with them, but it's the people in the comments, it's the people egging it on, it's the people that supporting it. They're just as hopelessly lost as the people that are making the content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, man, it's a slow thing, but we are starting to digitally construct the modern day Coliseum, and people want bloodshed. They want to see, and I don't even necessarily mean that about seeing Christians die, because I mean that was the main reason of the Coliseum, but all in the sake of entertainment. Human life is ending, and that is against God. That is the exact antithesis. And this digital age, you have all these keyboard warriors that are absolutely brutal online, and then you meet them face to face, and they're these skinny little twigs that, again, can't even look you in the eye, and they're weak little soy boys, and they're self-entitled little girls who think that what it takes to be successful is to sell your body online, typically for the girls, and then for the boys to one up each other, again, to see how far they can go, just short of dying, and then they get the next big signing, and the list goes on, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. But man, I'll tell you one thing here's another. I've kind of said this for a while now, so this is really nothing new to me, but kind of a cold hard truth here is a certain generation. I guess you could say that Gen Zers, maybe. I'm kind of rephrasing what I usually say here, because now that I haven't said this in a while, but basically the majority of Gen Zers, I hate to say this, but I think they're going to die off. They're just going to completely die off entirely, and even some millennials, because they're cutting off their own body parts. They don't want to procreate. They're still trying to find a good man or a good woman, right? And they're lonely, they're depressed, they're sad, they're taking drugs. The suicide rate is super, super high. And by then it's too late. They're getting older, so they don't think that, they want to believe the lie that life is not worth living. Satan got the best of them, and they're gone. Now, Gen Alpha, as they say, there is hope for them.
Yeah.
And of course, there's our children, right? Which I know, I don't even need to tell you how important that is.
Yeah.
I do think that, historically speaking, it's look, evil begets evil. All it knows is destruction, mayhem, and chaos. It's going to take care of itself one way or the other. I know that sounds brutal, but it's just the truth, man.
Yeah.
The demons are going to they're going to take care of themselves in that way, and that generation will die off, and then replacement will come into play, and hopefully by the grace of God, there will be a thriving moment, a moment to breathe, right? That's also all throughout biblical history too. And my point in saying all that is that I really hope, and I have a strong suspicion that we're actually returning back to the ways of the days of
Yeah.
old. It's a very, very slow process, right? But God typically, I'm not saying I know his time frame, but usually typically it's a few hundred years or two or three or whatever, that he does these kinds of things in this modern day age. And I'm not predicting when he's going to work. I'm just
Yeah.
saying what I've noticed. So anyway.
No, I agree with that one. I just want to acknowledge some of the people in the Rumble chat. Hey, sorry guys, I
Of
haven't
course.
been so focused on the chat. I am locked in on what Chavez is saying, but I do appreciate you guys being here and supporting the chat. You guys are awesome, all of you, Soundboard Lord and Unkempt Bush and Miss Leslie and everybody that has just supported the chat. And for those of you watching on TikTok, I appreciate all of you guys. Really, seriously, it means a lot that you take the time out of your night to listen to this conversation. And I've really been enjoying the conversation that we've been having. But I think you're right, man. And things do have to change, and I think there are periods of time where things can change faster than we know it. And there's been times where Israel, ancient Israel has descended into lawlessness, but somebody rediscovers the basic truths of who God is, and they bring about tremendous reform. And I think what we need to do is pray that we get those types of leaders rising up that can bring that change and return us to following God with our whole hearts, our whole minds, and our whole souls, because the people of this world are counting on Christians rising up and doing the right thing and walking in the truth and not shrinking back from it. So I do think it can happen sooner than we think, and I think we have to live our lives very intentionally to ensure that does happen.
Yeah. I think I am gonna call it right now though. Whatever the hello conservative cult, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome.
Hey.
So I'm actually like you, man. I'm better at. I mean, I'm a streamer. I've been doing this for so many years. You think I'd be better at acknowledging the chat, but Christianity and faith is the one thing that I'm like. I'm so not just locked in. I give it my undivided attention because it's the most important thing in this entire world. If we were like gaming or talking about maybe economics or politics or parenting or education or whatever, I would be doing the chat thing or whatever. But this deserves. This is the least we can do as Christians is give our undivided attention to the most important discussion and topics of this day and age, because they're not really discussed to a deeper level in most streams, because people have been mentally conditioned to be terrified to even talk about this kind of stuff. So the fact that you're doing this, I'm going to give you another applause and some praise, man, because people are terrified to even say the word Jesus on stream, right? But back to your point, man, I am completely convinced. I'm calling it right now, and this might seem obvious to some, but others are terrified of this. But I am positive that what the enemy intended, as far as ending Charlie Kirk's line and his life and everything else, dude, it doesn't work like that, man. There's going to be so many more, because as many people hated him, there's twice as many that loved him. And man, you said it yourself, keyword is emboldened, right? Yeah. That is going to echo throughout, as far as I'm concerned, eternity. What happened a few days ago is absolutely historical. Yeah. It is absolutely historical, man. This will be written in the books. And there's proof of it now. I mean, this is where the internet works for us, right? It'll be digitally documented. Nobody can manipulate. Nobody can change. Nobody can do this. Nobody can do that. They'll try, but it'll be debunked, right? With the advancements of AI and a few other things. But anyway, my point is that, like, look, this sounds so cheesy, but honestly, like, from the ashes arises a new phoenix, right? Yeah. Well, now the phoenix, there's multiple phoenixes, this is plural, right? And Charlie is going to live in each and every single one to some degree, man. I can't wait to witness that. Hopefully, I get a chance to really see that before I pass. But
Yeah, the blood of the martyrs is what ultimately advances the gospel in ways
mhm.
that are unimaginable. It's how, essentially, the gospel message got spread to the uttermost bounds of the earth. All the disciples followed Jesus Christ, or nearly all of them that followed Jesus Christ ended up giving their lives for the sake of the gospel,
Mhm.
and it just spread it. So it's like they can try to snuff us out, they can try to stop us, but it's only going to it's only going to spread more. And
Yep.
that is
Yep.
encouraging to me. It's I say we are at, not to be cliche either, but we are at a turning point, and I do
Mhm.
think it is
Ironic,
aptly
isn't
fit, yeah, that
it?
his organization was called Turning Point. And I remember, and I talked about this on stream yesterday, but I remember another moment that really resonated. I don't know if you followed this story, but in 2018, I believe, there was a Christian missionary by the name of John Chow that went to the island of Sentinel to try to reach this unreached people group. He's
Mm.
forbidden from going on the island,
Mhm.
and he spent a lot of his many years preparing to go there. And he goes there and he goes to share the gospel with these people. And when he first shows up, they shoot arrows at him, and he flees, and he hold on one second. I just want to bring something up because I do think it's profound.
Yo, while you're doing your thing, man, y'all follow Ryan, show him some love, man. Share the stream out. Um, I'm good on time, by the way. I didn't know if I want to respect your time if you needed to go at any specific time,
No,
but
I'm
y'all share out, man. Show some love.
I'm good, and I appreciate that, man. So he goes to this island, he gets shot out, he goes, back into his boat, his kayak, and he journals, and he says, "You guys might think I'm crazy, but in all this, but I think it's worth it to declare Jesus to these people. Please do not be angry at them or God if I get killed. Rather, please live your lives as obedience to whatever He has called you to, and I will see you again when you pass through the veil. This is not a pointless thing. The eternal lives of this tribe is at hand, and I can't wait to see them around the throne of God, worshiping in their own language, as Revelation 7:9 through 10 states." That was another moment for me. When he got killed, you saw people celebrating his death. You saw news reporting him as crazy
Mm-hmm.
and as stupid, and how could you go do that and leave them alone? And it was this global story. But to me, it really just spoke to what we're ultimately supposed to be doing and the risk involved in doing this, because there is risk, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anything worth having comes easy and comes without risk. When
Mm-hmm.
you are living boldly for the faith, when you are walking in accordance with the truth, when you have a connection with God and your heart beats for His people, your life is at risk, but ultimately, you can trust that God's sovereign hand will be on you, and that He'll lead you to exactly where you need to be to accomplish His ultimate will. And I think right now we need people that are willing to risk it all for the gospel. I'm not saying, and this is not a call for people to be reckless, because like me,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, I'm a father. I have a responsibility to my family, but I also have a responsibility to the truth. So it's like, don't, be a little bit comfortable with getting uncomfortable, and stepping out and sharing your faith, because the world needs it right now.
Yeah. I have a saying. It's a very simple saying, but it can absolutely be applied to everyday life in whatever scenario it is, no matter what it is. It's a universal, applicable statement. And every single day, there's a decision to make between what is right and what is easy.
Yeah.
And far too many are choosing what's easy, what's convenient for them, what's comfortable, just as you said, right? But to do the right thing, to quote from a silly movie, Braveheart, William Wallace says, every man dies, not every man really lives,
Yeah.
right? And in a sense, the I guess kind of the caveat to that is like it's easy to die for something because I mean death comes and then
Yeah.
that's it. But the hardest thing is to live
Yeah.
for something, and brother, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're all doing.
Yeah.
But the question is, of course, that begs the question: what are we living for? And most people, it's I'm living for myself, right? But when it really boils down to it, I always try to encourage, especially believers, specifically Christians. Believers is kind of a universal term, but specifically Christians, is that far too many have the knowledge, but they don't have the wisdom. What do I mean by that? They read the good book. They know what to say. They know the numbers. They know the verses. They know the books. They know the order. They always have the right thing to say. But in that moment, it kind of falls on deaf ears because those words are not formulating into a verb. It doesn't become an action.
Yeah.
Right. That makes just about as much sense as me claiming myself in my studio here and reading and reading and reading, but I never go outside of my house and do anything about it. Right. So back to your initial point, people having the courage, keyword courage, to just go out there and speak openly and freely. And at this point now, man, I'll take that a step further. I say this on my own streams, even when I'm doing drumming and stuff like that, man, I'll have a little mini chatting with Chavez segment. And I'll say at this point now, it's talking about God or not God or whatever. Like we can get into that. But at this point now, I just want to encourage people to speak their mind and to have an opinion, whether or not the opinion is valid or not, or whether you think it's a stupid statement or whatever, that's irrelevant. That's absolutely irrelevant. Let's just start with being comfortable enough to speak out and openly, because I mean, not everybody is a war. Sounds arrogant for me to say. Not everybody is as fierce and savage as me, and I understand that. I'm not expecting everybody to be. I never push that on anybody. However, to some degree, again, I recognize where this comes from God. We are all called in some which way, shape, or form to have some kind of courage to go against the grain, especially when the odds are just forever not in our favor.
Yeah.
We all are pushed to the limit to a certain degree, even for those who don't acknowledge God at all. So you might as well apply wisdom, which comes from God anyway, right? And just put it into action and have some kind of courage to say, you know what? For over 7 years now, you've been saying 2 + 2 is 5. I don't think it's 5. And here's why. And actually explain it, right? And then typically a defensive nature or defense mechanism kicks in, or they yell and scream, they constantly interrupt, low impulse control, and the list goes on and on. At that point, I'm just laughing, by the way. That becomes entertainment to me. But that's me just being prideful, but it is what it is. But anyway, my closing point on that topic specifically is really just the fact that the most important thing is to have the courage to be able to speak up, which, yes, does sound a little cheesy, but I understand what you mean when you say that. But far too many can't even have that courage if they don't have that initial fear as well. And to acknowledge the fear, but is one thing, but to do something about that fear. You cannot have courage without fear.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot have good. No, I'm sorry. You cannot have bad without good.
Yeah.
But you actually can have good without bad. That's what I find interesting. That's a whole interesting dichotomy and a huge scenario right there. Anyway, so that's was my closing point as far as that topic.
No, I hear you, man. And one thing too, especially if you're a Christian, you're watching this, is cowardice is a sin. Like cowards are not going to inherit the kingdom of God. So it is in your best interest to be brave. Just to go back to something I briefly mentioned. That girl Irina getting stabbed to death on the train. One of the most disgusting things about that.
And which her story got pushed on the back burner. Let's not forget about her.
Yeah.
But, you're right. But
it did get pushed on the back burner. But one of the most disgusting things about that wasn't just the savage act. That was bad. Like there's no mistake. That was evil. But it was the apathy and the lack of courage of the people immediately surrounding her that didn't step up and do anything. And we can't be, we don't want to be those people in the kingdom. Or God looks at us the same way. He's like, well, you were there and you did nothing. You were present and you did nothing. My people were suffering and you did nothing. Yeah. That person needed to hear the truth and you said nothing. I don't want to be that person. I don't want that on my conscience. So we do have a responsibility to our neighbor, if we truly love God and we truly love our neighbor, to say the truth, and not be cowards and be bold. So I do have to start wrapping up here, man.
Sure.
So I do want to just ask, If you have any final thoughts, if you could leave this audience with, one message or one important thing that you want them to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
That is such a simple question, but it's actually a loaded question.
Yeah.
You think I'd be able to answer that pretty quickly, considering how many interviews I've conducted, and well, interviews that I've done and also have been done on me. But every if that question ever comes my way, my answer is like always different. It's because it depends on. To me, I'm talking out loud. I have
Yeah.
to talk out loud, process
Hey,
these things.
man, it's whatever the Holy Spirit thinks is appropriate for today. It's what the people need to hear.
No, that's no. I appreciate that. That's valid, and I really appreciate your patience too, man. Because I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve. If I'm mad, you'll know I'm mad. If I'm sad, you'll know I'm sad. I am very very transparent, open, and honest. I have nothing to hide. But I think the first and foremost, quite frankly, is and for the skeptic out there, for the stubborn, for the hard-headed, I would know I was one of them, and I'm still basically that way. Um, Whether you like it or not, Jesus loves you, man.
Yeah.
He does. He absolutely does. And, God loves you enough to not push himself on you. He loves you enough to give you a choice. And I'll even double down on that by telling very brief, it's a very, very brief, quick little story / analogy, metaphor, whatever you want to call it. But I love asking. I got this actually from Dr. Kent Hovind, who's like the dinosaur, Dr. Dino. If you've never heard of him, he's pretty controversial. We can talk about that another time. But he said something that I thought was actually really, really interesting and so very true. Is it possible that we are using 100% of our brain and we know everything about everything about everything? And the answer to that is no, right? Well, are there people out there that maybe know 50% of how everything works? Biology, science, math, geography, chemicals. I mean, make whatever topic up. Do we understand, say, 50% of everything? The answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
Okay, what about 25%? No, I don't think so. Okay, well, there's this rumor floating around that we only use 10% of our brains, right? So let's just go with that number. Let's just say that we are brilliant enough and that we understand 10% of how everything operates in this world, including the universe, the understanding of the galaxy, stars, gases, everything. Well, if we're only using 10% of our brain and what we understand, is it possible that God lives and exists in the other 90%?
Yeah.
Is
Maybe.
that possible? Right?
Yeah.
Well, the logical conclusion, as a realist, is yes, it is possible that he actually lives in the other 90% because you don't know that 90%. And that's what I want to chat. That's probably the biggest thing that I would say as a takeaway from tonight's interaction. And to humble yourself. That's the other part of it. Humble yourself. Look, the beginning of understanding is understanding that you don't understand everything. We have got to humble ourselves. We have to. Otherwise, look, Proverbs teaches us that a wise man seeks knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Instruct a wise man and he becomes wiser still. He doesn't have low impulse control. Blessed is he who overlooks an offense, for he promotes love. These are symptoms of a greater character, and to be humble enough to ask yourself, examine yourself, test yourself, just as Paul Washer said. Humble yourselves and realize, now let me make this about the industry and the streaming part of it. Yeah. There is always somebody better. There's always somebody better. There's somebody with a better camera. There's somebody with more charisma. There's somebody who can acknowledge chat better. Yeah. There's somebody who's got better overlays. I'm kind of picking on you a little bit.
Hey, it's
but that goes to me too. There's somebody with better graphics, again, production, microphones, all this other stuff. So let's stop looking at success as to how much money we make and look at this false representation of what we think success looks like from production and value. And let's start actually measuring success by what the standard of God, what he set for us specifically. And you cannot understand the standard of God until you humble yourself first. It is impossible. Trust me, I've tried. And no amount of lifetimes that I can live will ever change that inevitable outcome and conclusion. So humble yourself, right? Humble yourself. And realize that you do not understand everything, right? Remember, We are finite. We live within space and time.
Yeah.
God is infinite and he lives outside of space and time. He created space and time. And most importantly, he created us. Look at the freaking universe, dude. Do you think evolution really made that? Do you realize that if the sun was just off by 1 inch closer to us, we would all burn? Do you think, I mean, don't you think that there's somebody up
It's
there that's
profound,
holding
man.
it in place? Get the crap out of here. You know nothing. You know nothing. And guess what? I don't know anything either. So let's just start there. Humble yourselves. Humble yourselves.
Awesome. Hey, Chavez, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your stories and share your insights, man. I really do appreciate it. I thought this is a rich conversation for everybody in the chat, Miss Leslie, Colt, everybody that hung in there. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching. It means a lot, and I'm very, very grateful. And keep the Kirk family in your prayers. They're reeling right now, and they definitely need your prayers. And pray that God raises up people to make a difference in this nation, because the world is spinning out of control. But we can help make a difference by just heeding his voice and going where he calls us to. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Have a blessed night. Deuces.